Hello and welcome to Matchbook Betting Exchange podcast. Today, of course, we are discussing all things Matchbook Betting Exchange Maiden Derby at Towcester. As always, I'm joined by the maestro, Paul Lawrence, as we dissect the opening round, look ahead to the second round, and continue our chase for outright success in the anti-post market with Matchbook Betting Exchange. Paul, it was a tremendous opening round. I suppose there were very few shocks. One or two of the big names did exactly what we were expecting. But a certain wide open posted the fastest time, 29:20. The Irish flag is already flying high around Towcester. Let's hope for my sake that it continues for the next couple of months. But no, it was a great opening round. Coolavani Shadow did everything you'd have expected him to do. A 4:13, shot clear, 29:29, a very satisfactory start. He returned 1-6, Paul, 1-6. I'm sure he was a bit bigger on the exchange. He was very taking.
Yeah, he was. He showed. He didn't really sort of smash out the tracks, but anyway, he just broke sensibly and showed a burst of acceleration to the turn and good back straight pace. I think actually, I spoke to Patrick actually over the weekend prior to the race, and he said literally he's not really done that much with him, So he knows that he's got a fast greyhound on his hands, and he's doing what he expected him to do in trials. He's going forward, and it just looks like now it's obviously a learning process in race conditions, Ian, isn't it? With Coolavani Shadow, he looks a real smart dog.
Yeah, I meant to say at the start of the podcast there that last week we highlighted the €30 insights offer, the sign up offer. Bet €30, get €30 free bet back if it doesn't happen to win. We mentioned that perhaps you might throw it into the anti-post market, the likes of Coolavani Shadow, Wide Open, the dog you had tipped up, Swift, Iconic, were all mentioned. Well, that offer is still going ahead. So if you haven't dipped your toe in the market, why not do so? The €30 or £30 sign up offer. Insights 30 is the bonus code, all capitals, Insights 30. And again, bet £30 and money back as a free bet if your first bet loses. Nothing wrong with that. Paul, I'm sure one or two people availed of that in the opening round and hopefully sitting on some nice money. Outside of Coolavani Shadow, Wide Open was the real eye catcher, 4:18, 29:20, and she absolutely took off into the escape. She has an unbelievable engine, Paul. We did suggest last week that that's the case. It was some first look. It's hard to believe she hadn't even had a trial.
It was, and I mean, you were waxing lyrical about her, and I was a little bit. I have to admit, I was a little bit skeptical because I thought she was more of a staying type of greyhound, maybe. But she came out the boxes, she timed the break nicely, and she just showed good all round speed. And the clock doesn't lie in, so I've got to tip my hat to you.
Yeah, but listen, I'd seen enough to know she was coming forward.
Yeah.
Whatever about some of them in the competition, we knew that this lady was going to improve. I have to say, I was a little bit taken aback when I saw her leading three into the back straight, but I'll take it as someone who was on the road down the country. I pulled into the services, stuck it on the phone, and there she was, clear down the back straight. That'll do. That really will do. Wide Open. Other than them, a couple of 29:40 runs. Farney's Maestro, a very, very impressive English debut. Paul just did everything right from the inside box. 4:21. Looking at him, I don't think a draw slightly more middle would hinder him. I think he'll go reasonably straight from most boxes. So much to like from him, Farney's Maestro.
Yeah, he looked nice, and again he looked like in his trials that he was a decent trapper. He'd won an A7, I think, when Kevin bought him, and you kind of think, wow, you're turning that into an open race, or albeit a maiden open race. This is a very, very good competition, high standard. But yeah, he looked pretty smart, and you're right. I think he's drawn. He is drawn track 3 in the next round, and I don't think that'll really hinder him looking at it. He probably doesn't really want track 1 necessarily. He doesn't have to have track 1, put it that way. So I don't think 3 is going to really hinder him, and he's another greyhound that looks like he can carry on improving.
Yeah, we'll get to the draw soon, but he's drawn immediately inside a certain Coolavani Shadow. That's an interesting one to look ahead to. Rab and Liz McNair always have won for this type of competition. Havana Lover, I thought she showed more early than I was expecting. She was
I was
right
just
there,
going to say
banging
that myself.
contention.
Yeah,
Then
agreed.
the sprinter got up her inside, but she showed Gray's track craft and awareness not to do something stupid. She turned second. She picked her time and then took him around the bottom two bends and charged on to win by 3 and 3 parts. Luminous Invader stayed on well behind her. 8 to 11, she was returned 29.46. A very pleasing display by Havana Lover.
Yeah, it was quite impressive. And you're right. Again, probably similar thought process in that wasn't too sure how good she was in the early pace department, but she, again, timed the start reasonably well. But she certainly wasn't devoid of early. We had the good yardstick on her inside, and I think we expected her to track round. She did that quite easily, really, and she put the race to bed at an early stage. So yeah, she's another greyhound again. Going forward, Rab and Liz are very good with these young sort of greyhounds. They actually got Havana Robusto through as well. So yeah, it just adds to the melting pot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's plenty of quality there. Obviously, things are going to get a bit tighter going forward in this competition as the dead wood is sort of discarded now. Not to say that any of them are dead wood as per se, but when the real talent and the real cream sort of comes to the top. Just looking at the other one that we had to mention was Swift Iconic. He had sprint form on his card for John Mullins. He took the step up to 500 meters in his stride, returned an odds-on favourite. He's only in October 20, but we said last week, a son of Droopy's Roddick, that the 500 meters probably shouldn't be a hindrance. You took a chance at tipping him up anti-post, and it looked a shrewd investment, Paul, because he did a 4:12, a very fast sectional, 29.45, just a very pleasing four-bend debut.
Yeah, he looks a clockwork breaker, Ian, and this is something I kind of said. We are all guilty of compartmentalising dogs sometimes just because he's sprinting. He's a sprinter, but you quite rightly said he was a Droopy's Roddick. He's bred to stay 500 metres standing on his head, and he certainly saw the trip out really well. And he was just one of those I thought was lurking at the wrong end of the market. Really, he'd done nothing wrong, and there wasn't really too much to pick holes in his form. And I think, yeah, I'll be sitting pretty now with the old anti-post bet on the Matchbook exchange because I'll bet him at a big price.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that. And speaking of big prices, there's one dog I want to mention. Stories Pee Wee was allowed to go to traps at 11 to 2, so I can only assume he was 8 or 9 perhaps on the exchange. Paul, please tell me you availed. I was on the road to Sligo. I didn't have a chance to.
I was doing something else at the time. I got to tell you, I didn't. I literally turned around to watch the race. I think I was doing something else. I was watching videos or something. I was doing my Doncaster card or something like that. And no, I didn't. And afterwards, I just thought, what? But it's one of those where I looked and saw the 11 to 10. I think it was sort of 11 to 10, 2.1 in the morning on the earlies, and yet drifted out. I think it was about 8 on the exchange, and you just think, how did that happen? What's wrong? Does someone know more than you do? It just, I don't know. And I wasn't really. I'm not really a PJ's forever dog either, and I thought he was a little bit vulnerable for early pace. I thought that the Stories dog could track him round anyway and pick him up, and it was kind of plain sailing afterwards. I thought, how have I missed that? Yeah, so that was something that I wasn't too proud of, I must admit. But it just shows there's massive value on the exchanges.
I actually saw the results and went, oh no, that's a misprint.
Yeah.
One of them. And to lead early, like a dog with such power, for him to lead early, I dare say Nathan Hunt and Gavin O'Mahony going to have a bit of fun with him in the UK. No, well done to anyone that got on Stories P. We just mentioned the other heat winners there. Coppice Brewer, who I suggested was a bit of an outside chance. Zachary's Zazaraz Jack, should I say, 29.69, hell of a kerfuffle. One of my mentions was second in that one, and they were the heat winners. That was the opening round. That was lots to take out of it, Paul. But I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll skip straight into the second round and look forward to this weekend's action. And then we'll get back to the business of perhaps finding a bit of value outside of perhaps the top 2 or 3 in the market, although we'll be giving them a fair mention also. The opening heat of the second round, Lightfoot Tolu, Havana Robusto, Zazaraz Jack, 59, Savannah Camino and Crossfield Lexi. How do you see this one, Paul? Is there something that's obviously we're missing out, or is there something that we'll just go bang and lead off?
No, I really like Crossfield Lexi here. I thought she showed a bit of it early on her debut. I know Patrick has bought her as more maybe like a an easy six bend sort of 575 600 meter bitch, but I don't think looking at her she was devoid of early in her opening race. That was behind Farney's Maestro, who was impressive on the eye. I just thought she showed signs of greenness at the first bend, and she kind of, as we sort of alluded to, Farney's Maestro isn't a bang raider. He kind of steps off at the first bend, and she did the same thing, to trying to get out of his way, if you like. So I think she lost a bit of momentum doing that. And 59 was actually in that opening heat with her, and that for Matty Matty Dartnell took advantage and skipped inside her. And then again, she sort of just got held out around the second turn, and she stayed on really well in the closing stages. I don't think it's impossible for her to be at the head of the pack going into the first turn here. I don't think she necessarily wants trap six, but I think it might just keep her out of trouble. And I know that Savannah Camino is going to edge in a little bit, and that's more of a sort of a staying type. So I just thought that Crossfield Lexi here would have a chance to dominate the outside of the pack, and maybe Lightfoot Tolu up on the inside could lead the inner, and it could be sort of between those two, maybe 59 if that one improved as well. But I just liked Crossfield Lexi in the opener.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought she was an eye catcher. As you said, she sort of looked a little bit intimidated into the corner by the Farney's dog moving off, and then she sort of just checked her stride slightly. But then she was forced to check off the second bend when trying to slip back up inside 59, who was certain to turn third to her, only for he got the gap on the inside and was left second, and she was staying on well. I thought she'd have no option but to lead up Savannah Camino. He doesn't seem to have any early speed. He's more of a stayer, as you said. And 59, well, she was nearly 2 lengths clear of 59 at the bend last week, so I can't see why that can't happen. Zazar's Jack will go up well, but he's not going to move too far off the true line. Havana Robusta seems to lack early. He wants the inside, and Lightfoot Tolu thought was well housed. He's certainly a player. I thought he ran well behind Coulivanny Shadow, but no, Crossfield Lexi for me also. On to the second heat. Is it a case of, if Coulivanny Shadow leads Farney's Maestro early, which probably should happen, they're going to finish first and second?
I think so. I think he probably needs to get a lively break. He certainly can do that. Coulivanny Shadow. Farney's Maestro, I don't think he'll be moving off from 3, probably edging in slightly, but only slightly. But I think it'll be quite a tussle between the pair of them. Although, Coulivanny Shadow probably has the advantage time-wise, Ian, you've still got to do it with what you'd call maybe a valid sort of quality opposition of a dog in Farney's Maestro. So he's got to do it now a little bit further off the fence, Shadow. He was in 2 for his opening. I think he'll probably go into lane 3 from 4. And I think Farney's Maestro will sort of just go in slightly. So I don't think they'll clash. But obviously then at the bend, it's whether Coulivanny Shadow can clear Farney's Maestro by the length and a quarter, so there's no sort of tangling, if you like. But I think if they do turn first and second, that's probably how it will stay. I'm not too sure whether could Coulivanny Shadow out middle Farney's Maestro down the back.
I think he probably out middle most of them, to be honest. I think where his time is like, don't let me say his time is slipping. He did 29.29. My fear is from the final bend home, and certainly the run to the escape every night is going to worry me. I know Patrick's probably bringing him along nice and slowly, but he's plenty of trials. He should be race fit at this stage. I know he's only had the 2 starts. Just my concern is in a deeper competition, a competition where you have to produce every night, week in, week out for 4 or 5 weeks in a row. Let's say a Derby. I just fear. I fear that it's going to take a bit more out of him, because he really is collapsing into that escape. He doesn't want any further than 500 meters, that's for sure.
No, I think you're right. I think that looks to be his limit at the moment. At the moment. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't think he'll be necessarily a desperately short runner by any means, Ian. I think he'll get the 500 meters well enough. It's just how much now he's going to progress. And you're right. He's come from some real decent trials. He looks like he should be nearing race fitness, but because of his I suppose the fact that he's only had now 2 races in his life, he's still learning his trade as a race dog, if you get what I mean. So that I think this is a really good test for him.
Yeah, really good test from him. It is. We have to point it out. It was only a second start of the night, and he looks just a thorough professional. I, he just could be one of those dogs that is rarely led because he has such stunning early speed. The distance he put between himself and his rival to the second bend was was awesome. Farney's Maestro is the standout danger, but we really are struggling to pick one to challenge those two in that contest, aren't we, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I thought for the third qualifying spot, because you've got, I thought maybe the stay inside, but I mean, PJ's forever's a front runner that can't lead. Di Serrano Nero's probably a front runner that can't lead. So you're probably looking then at Baggio's Turbo or Antigua Blue. And I went for Antigua Blue for Nathan to probably qualify in third, because I think 4 Kuldavani Shadow will beat 3 Farney's Maestro there, and probably Antigua Blue. But those two are obviously at the top end of the market. Kuldavani Shadow is a short price favourite and should do the business, hopefully, with that. You just need a sensible break in. I'm sure
Yeah,
he'll lead
I
and
was
win.
going to say, nobody listens to this. Like, don't get us wrong. We don't think you'll be getting even money about Kuldavani Shadow on Sunday. Like, to be honest, if you got 4 to 6, I'd be taking it right now. Moving on to the third of the heats, a certain wide open in trap 3. Stories Pee Wee is in 4. Coppice Brewer is out in 6. They were the 3 heat winners from the opening round. But I thought Hell of a Kerfuffle ran okay. Luminous Invader, I thought, was one of the eye catchers of the opening round for Leaf Field. Really liked the way he went about things, staying on very well, and Chubby's Jet completes the lineup. It's an interesting heat, Paul. Wide open won't just have things quite as easy on Sunday as she did last week. She'll need to be sharp enough at the boxes. Of course, she can do it from behind as well, but like that, she has limited experience at the track, so you'd prefer to see her getting out and finding a pitch early.
Yeah, I think you could say that for all of the most of this field, though, Ian, that they've got limited experience. And again, I mentioned earlier on, she was very, very impressive. I mean, it was a great spot from you, and obviously it's a great spot from Brendan and Damien. They kind of picked her out as an ideal candidate for this competition, and I think she's going to take a hell of a lot of beating here. I make her very, very short here, despite the fact that Stories Pee Wee was impressive enough and he's classy enough. He's now drawn on the outside of wide open, and as we mentioned, she wasn't devoid of early pace by any means. So I like the fact that she did it well on her debut. She'd had no previous look. There's nothing to say that she couldn't even go forward. She doesn't have to go forward, Ian, on the clock to even win this race. So if she just repeats her effort from the opening round, I think she'll win this quite comfortably.
I hope you're right. I do hope you're right. My anti-post book would be dependent on it. Stories Pee Wee certainly won't move in on her. We've mentioned it last week. We think he's better as a middle to wide.
Yep.
He certainly did nothing wrong from trap 3 last week. I saw nothing in his victory last week to suggest he'll move in from trap 4. He's clearly one of the dangers. I think Luminous Invader can certainly play a part. I thought both Hell of a Kerfuffle and Coppice Brewer would improve. Coppice Brewer just got a little bit lost. I don't know how he won, because he was 4th off the last bend, got up by a short head, and then the dog that he beat let him clear to the escape. So
Yeah.
it was a case of, it was like he knew where the line was, but he does tend to drift around on the outside of the track, and if there's runners up his inside, he's probably going to struggle to land the telling blow. Hopefully Wide Open does get a start, and we have a cleanly run race. I think Luminous Invader is probably my choice for second, with Stories Pee Wee perhaps filling the frame. And on so to the final heat, where Havana Lover has a good draw on the inside of Swift Iconic. That said, he probably will lead the lady. He didn't leave an awful lot of room on his inside at the corner last week, but looking at her last time, I wouldn't be too concerned. I think if there's no room, she'll just wait, bide her time. I think she looked very intelligent last week, Paul. I really liked the way she went about it. Are we looking at the top 2 with... Are we mentioning anything else? Chums Road ran okay behind Wide Open, but he's 19-0. I think that says it all. He was a pacey type dog in Ireland. I thought he'd win one before his 19th or 20th start, I have to admit. He was known as Barney's Road in Ireland. He did 1 or 2 quirky things in his early starts. He ran very well in the opening round of the Kirby, I think it was. He might have got into that as a debutant last year, but Swift Iconic will be in front most likely, and Havana Lover probably best position to pick him up.
Yeah, I'll make it a match. I'll make it a match. I'm making both fairly short and double figures the rest of the field. And I hope it's not my heart ruling my head. I actually favour Swift Iconic. I do slightly favour. I could see Havana
Here's a
Lover
question
jumping.
for you, Paul. Just ask me this and answer me this. Like they ran the same night, and I know track conditions can change. It'd be very rare though that you'd have races in Ireland where, 3 races earlier or 4 races earlier, Havana Lover does 29.46 and normal going, and Swift Iconic does 29.45 plus 10 going.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Um, yeah. Listen, I didn't look too strongly at the going allowances necessarily. I didn't. I just think that yeah, it's a bit strange. But then again, I'm out of being a race manager for a long while. I can't really tell uh, what the race manager at Towcester what to do in giving his going allowances. But yeah, it does seem a bit strange. I must admit. But I I, I thought that the place to be at Towcester is probably you're better in front, especially with inexperienced dogs in this competition. I think Swift Iconic will lead Havana Lover, and I think that'll be good enough.
Yeah.
So,
She's
yeah,
she's not she's not going to pick him up as quickly as she picked up her rival last week. And at the point where she went around the outside last week, if you're trying to pick up Swift Iconic and he's capable of doing a 29.40 on the bunny, it's not that easy to get around them.
no,
No.
no. And as I say, he just looks a nice dog. He just looks his style of running is going to suit Toaster, and I don't actually think there's too much vulnerability about him. So I think he's probably straightforward there. But I do respect the chances of Havana Lover because I was impressed with the way that she actually got into the race earlier than I thought she would last time. So you have to be a little bit wary. I can't be too bolshy about Swift Iconic. I think they're the two to concentrate on. I hope it's a good buckle between them, but I also hope probably that Swift Iconic bangs out and leads all the way for John.
He's only in October 20. Well, like we seem to forget that we're dealing with such young greyhounds. Like, how is he not going to come forward, Paul?
Yeah, exactly. And he's done nothing wrong. He's 3 from 3 now, 2 sprints, 1 500, and he just it just looks like he's one of those unexposed dogs that John gets his hands on, and Chris Waters is a kennelland as well, and a big pal and a big advocate of the kennel. I wish him every success.
I must mention, Paul, we saw 8 opening round heats. It was very clean racing, wasn't it? It was great to see.
He was. No, to be fair, as we mentioned earlier on, for inexperienced dogs, Ian, there were pretty much some clean running racing. So yeah, I must admit it's a competition that's caught my imagination and hopefully plenty of others. And listening to this again, wide open. It's a great shout from you. I'm happy with Swift Iconic. We've got some really good dogs at the top end that I think actually Caldovani Shadow was massive value at 11-4 on the Matchbook Exchange. So there's definitely plenty of value to be had on the Matchbook Exchange, and that I will say from my heart. I mean that
Yeah.
as well.
No, absolutely. I thoroughly agree. I'll tell you what we'll do, Paul. We'll take a look to see how the market is now revolving around the top few in the market, because obviously there were some changes, but it's basically the same names up the top there. You see Coolavani Shadow 232. That's ahead of the fixed firms. Wide Open 7.6. I thought didn't she go a very big price with one or two of the fixed odds firms the following morning? Very surprised. It didn't last too long. Havana Lover at 8, Farney's Maestro at 12.5, Stories Peewee at 17, and Crossfield Lexi at 17. Of all the dogs there that we've seen, I think Swift Iconic is the one that's overly priced, Paul. I definitely have him shorter than the likes of Stories Peewee, Crossfield Lexi, and perhaps even Farney's Maestro. So that 17 for me is the value.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I must admit as well the fact that Crossfield Lexi is probably in a fairly straightforward heat for her. I put a little bit of that's my £9 at 30 there as well. So if anyone wants to say she can't win and avail, but then
don't worry, guys.
that will,
Don't worry, there'll be £9 there at 26. That'll be mine in a few minutes. Okay,
that'll be yeah, it'll get closer. But that's the beauty of you can put requests in, and sometimes you'll get late, sometimes you won't, and you just have to get to necessarily where you think that the price of a dog is, and can you bet it slightly over? And
we must point out that as the second round gets closer, there'll be a lot more activity in that market. Of course, people will be starting to take a view. Oh, the second round of the Maiden Derby's on today. I'll take a view on the anti-post market.
Exactly. The closer you get to the event, the stronger the the market will be, the more money will be up on the lay side, the more money will be on the backside, and they will be coming closer together. But as I say, at this early stage, you can sometimes, chip away. You can either take what's there or you can put requests in. And I think, again, not singing the praises necessarily of just Matchbook, but that's the beauty of the exchanges. And again, this competition, I think, and we said this last week, it gets the kind of brain working to try and work out who's going to improve, quicker than other dogs. Where's the value lying from the draws that we're getting through each round, and I think it's fantastic competition.
If we could go down towards the bottom of the market, take a look at some of the bigger price runners. There was one or two I just wanted to mention there. 59 Lightfoot, Tolu, Havana Robusto, Antigua Bluey, Coppice Brewer. Coppice Brewer, I mentioned he's probably too wide. He probably drifts around a bit too much. I had mentioned him last week. I still see no. Did we miss Luminous Invader? There he is, 75.
No, yeah.
Wow, okay.
No, it's a big
Yeah,
price.
I thought that was very big. I thought he was one of the more likely qualifiers. I thought he showed plenty in defeat last week behind Kulavani Shadow. No, don't get me wrong. I can see no way, shape, or form how he's going to reverse the form with Kulavani Shadow anytime soon. But at 75, you'd be willing to have a couple of quid on and see how far it takes you. Hell of a kerfuffle there as well. But
yeah, I thought that's a big price. I thought the two of those actually were quite impressive, and I know Wide Open's got to be short, and Stories Pee Wee will probably qualify, but out of one of those, you could even throw a couple of quid on both of them at 75s and hope you get one through, because things can happen. Say for instance, one of the big guns does miss the break, does get knocked out. All of a sudden, that market will compress. So yeah, I do that quite a lot, and I guess you do as well, Ian. There's something catches your eye, and you just think it can't be that price. So you just have a few quid on, just to
listen,
have
Paul,
that interest
for the likes of for the equivalent of a cup of coffee and a croissant. You know what I mean? A fiver or something that's 60 or 75, and if you get to the final, you have it worth 300 or 400 quid to yourself. Like, sure, isn't that what the sport is all about? That's what the game is about. Outside of the top 2 or 3 in the market, are you changing your views? Or you're happy with your lot, I suppose, at this stage? Swift Iconic. We've both mentioned Kulavani Shadow last week at the prices, but he was very much covering our stakes. I think that's the way to go forward, because if you are having a tenner on something, have a tenner on Kulavani Shadow, because he's still very much the one to beat. Wide Open for me is the second choice. It's the market suggests that also. Havana Lover, Farney's Maestro, Stories Pee Wee will all attract support, but I agree with you. CrossFit Lexi and Swift Iconic would be my two outside of the top 2 in the market.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're adding to your book, or you're even getting involved at this stage, I think they're the greyhounds that are going to offer you probably the best value. Because as I keep mentioning, dogs can improve at different rates. The Stories Pee Wee dog probably is what he is.
He's found his plateau. Like he's a top class greyhound. He's not going to be improving out of sight. Yeah.
No, he'll improve gradually, but he won't out of sight 100%. So there are young dogs, and listen, it's frightening that Wide Open could go forward again, Rufford 29-20. So that they're the sort of dogs that you're looking for. I must admit, we've both seen the same thing. Crossfield Lexi looks like she could improve probably 2 or 3 lengths, and again, therefore, she's got to put herself into the mix. So yeah, they're the dogs you're looking for. I still think that there's plenty to come from Swift Iconic. So I think you're right. Those two, Crossfield Lexi and Swift Iconic, are the two that probably would offer the most value at juicy prices.
I'm going to say Luminous Invader as well, just for a nibble. But again, a lot to look forward to. And of course, we have to mention, Paul, how often do we see it, or how often do we not see it? A competition like this, especially with young, inexperienced greyhounds, that something in those top 3 or 4 in the market is going to probably miss out next week and find a stumble, get clipped at the wrong time and out. And all of a sudden, the market takes on a completely different look to it. And if you're in at something at 25 or 33 or 40 or whatever, all of a sudden it could be an 8-1 chance next week, and you're thinking, I'm a shrewd fella. And that'll get you through a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's not money in the bank, but it certainly makes you feel better about yourself.
And the beauty of the exchange, you can always lay back as well. Ian, if you want to take your profit, you can always do that. So yeah, things happen, especially with young, inexperienced dogs. Things can happen, and the deeper we go into this competition, you're not going to get away with a mistake. Whereas in the opening rounds, you might do, but now the cream is rising to the top. You've got to make sure that you time your break right, and yeah, I just think again, great competition, and there's plenty of value to be had, and I can't wait till next Sunday.
Yeah, we have to mention, obviously these young greyhounds are getting a lovely, lovely look at Towcester ahead of the big one, the Derby, which will be commencing in just over a month from now. And we've seen little to see why Coolavani Shadow won't probably start Derby favourite in a few weeks' time. Um, others will certainly be shortening the market, like Wide Open, Havana, Lover, Swift Iconic. They're probably a shorter price now for the Derby than they would have been a week ago.
Yeah, it's given them good experience, and I think that's really important for Towcester. You'll see after the Kirby, a lot of the Irish trainers will start fetching their dogs over. Obviously, Patrick has trialled Thorn Falcon, last year's champion, and Bocco's Belly, I think, who's on the undercard on Sunday in a Derby trial stakes. So it's all going to hot up now. This competition will give the inexperienced dogs good experience of Towcester, the course and distance form, and yeah, he is Derby favourite, Coolavani Shadow, which is quite extraordinary, really, for a greyhound that's had 2 runs. He is
Yeah.
Derby favourite.
I think a few people latched on to the fact that he'd be running in this competition. He'd get plenty of experience around it.
Yeah,
Obviously, his trial form was sensational as well as his unbelievable debut around Tralee. It's nearly 2 months ago at this stage, I'd imagine. I don't have the dates in front of me, but it was certainly in February. But yeah, he's clearly a greyhound with big promise. And I do tend to find punters when they're looking at competitions like a Derby, they do tend to latch on to the promising ones, the ones that are more likely to improve, and they were probably no more obvious than Coolavani Shadow for improvement.
yeah, and you're right. You're always looking for those big price ones that might improve. So it's that again, it's a bit like this competition. There are tried and tested dogs, but there's also some real exposed greyhounds as well that will still be just off the top of the market for the Derby. Some of the stories Pee Wee certainly will be a good competition dog at Towcester. So it's yeah, all things leading to later in the year.
Yeah, one thing leads into another, Paul. I think we'll be busy for the next while. That's it from this week. Of course, don't forget you can sign up again with Matchbook Betting Exchange and the free £30 money back on. If you sign up and use the code Insights30, and again, make sure you spend that £30 perhaps on the Maiden Derby, and who knows, you might be in a great position in a couple of weeks' time as we look ahead to the final. But Paul, a pleasure as always. You'll be tuning in on Sunday, no doubt.
Oh, definitely, yeah, yeah. I'll be going. Yeah, I'll be going. I'm going.
You're heading to Towcester.
Yeah, we're going to Towcester. Yeah.
Will it
Yeah.
be Bermudas and Hawaiian shirt weather, or is it more jeans and a duffel coat?
No, I hope it will be. No, it's been pretty good. So I'm hoping it'll be pretty decent weather. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we look forward to it. That's it from us, though, on this, what are we now? Friday morning, looking ahead to Sunday's second round action in the Matchbook Betting Exchange Maiden Derby. Best of luck to anyone that still has a runner. Best of luck to you if you have a runner standing for you in the anti-post market. Don't forget that market is live now on Matchbook Betting Exchange. Coolavani Shadow remains the favourite. Will he stay there? Well, we'll find out on Sunday. But that's it from us this morning.